Greetings, ladies and gentlemen. In this video, I'm going to be going over my big AOE Fireball Ignite Elementalist that is also CI that I created in Crucible Solo Self-Found League. Now, this is a build that made use of a Crucible modifier that caused Fireball and Rolling Magma to have 100% more area of effect, where modifiers to number of projectiles do not apply to Fireball or Rolling Magma. So I can't have multiple projectiles, and I also have an anomalous Fireball here that gains up to 60% increased area effect in exchange for some reduced projectile speed. So what that does is I have this gate here in my hideout only to showcase what this does. You can see this red ring from my Dragon Fireball MTX showcasing how big the Fireball AOE explosion is. Now, before I get further into this, I want to showcase this clip from Exile Con.
We have a question in the meantime while Mark demos this. Are any of the Crucible modifiers to skills bookmarked for later review to be added in some form?
I'll try not to give any spoilers. But there are certain elements from Crucible passives, well, mainly the stats, that we will integrate into other places in the game, and some of those will be coming this patch. A lot of them won't, but we've got them in the bank in case we ever need to find a better home for them.
Okay, mentioned there was the idea that some of these Crucible ideas might be worked into the coming league. This one did not. I was actually expecting a pretty massive rework in alt quality gems. I thought the increased area of effect, reduced projectile speed on this anomalous Fireball might have been changed to actually give us this more area of effect to enable the playstyle that I'm going to showcase in this video. So I'm still going to make this build guide should this come available in some kind of way in the future, but they seem to kind of hint that we would be getting more of those things. And while we are getting several new support gems and whatnot, as far as these changes to skills that were offered in Crucible, they're not really existing yet. So I have hope that this build can still be playable in the future, but without this 100% more area effect, I can't recommend this until they add something like this back into the game. So some basic mechanics that I want to go into before I jump into this map. Fireball, projectiles gain radius as they travel further up to plus 10 radius. So if I stand right at this, you can see this radius is actually pretty small. But if I get further away, the farther away I get, the bigger the radius is. Another thing to mention here, I'm using the Dragon Fireball effect. If I use the basic Fireball effect, it is very hard to determine what the AoE of the Fireball is doing. The AoE effect dissipates so quickly that it's just like a poof. And what this build does is it hits like a nuke, actually. And Ignite prolifs through everything. So let's check it out and put the Dragon Fireball back on so we can actually see the AoE of the hits here. So in a strand map, a little bit of extra monster life, nothing crazy here. I actually enjoyed playing on this build so much that I leveled this build to level 100. And I can just launch this Fireball kind of off the screen, and well, let's try and hit an enemy with it, maybe. Maybe the next pack. The projectiles move so slowly, you kind of have to launch them and then move to where they would get on screen. But there was a big hit. I mean, you got the Ignite prolifs. Like, Ignites were going into these enemies over here. Here's a strongbox. I'll pop back. And then, boom. The whole strongbox just went up in flames. Right? That one, Ignite prolif almost got to the enemy in the bubble. Sometimes you got to get in the bubble. And I also have my own bubble to help keep me safe, being a CI build. Energy shield using the frost shield. I also have a flame wall that I can use to boost extra damage. I'm using aspect of the spider as well. That slowly builds up some extra damage on an enemy. But I love this. Like, it's different than any other Fireball build I've ever seen, because I love the idea that all the AoE scaling I've done also seems to affect the Ignite prolif. See how these enemies are just dying here as they're getting resummoned? Like, that's from the Fireball I hit way back over there. So it doesn't take much, and it's just the whole pack goes up from the one fireball. I loved it. It was something that couldn't exist in the game before Crucible, and I wish this playstyle with fireball actually was more of a thing moving forward. See how these enemies up here are dying? That's the ignite prolift from the enemies that were right here. So I've scaled so much area effect that is possible. And it is very possible, and we've theorized this in one of the live streams before Exile Con that I did, that the more area of effect off the fireball might actually be scaling the ignite prolift even. Don't really know on that, but I don't have the damage of the fireballs 2 popping because I didn't get a level 21 fireball. I don't have too many extra gem levels across my gear. I don't have an extra gem level on my shield. So it's missing some of its potential that I would have been able to get had I played in Trade League, maybe like a level 4 in power. But just the general idea of this with the giant AOE fireball explosion, it worked how I wanted it to. It goes off like a nuke and will incinerate a screen's worth of enemies with a single fireball cast. And some of these rare enemies like to be a little tougher, a little bit of extra monster life in this. But I also geared this character more into the CI aspect rather than the ridiculous levels of area effect I was doing with a Carcass Jack early on in this character's life. If you want to see how that worked out, there are links in this video description of the entire journey of how this character came to be and the whole process getting it up to here. Now, something else, I didn't do this entire map. I'd never used the Infernal Cry. This can cover enemies in ash, causing enemies to take increased fire damage and cause enemies to explode. Portion of their life is fire damage. I have the Wave of Conviction that curses with flammability, and I have a Flame Wall if we want to get everything going here. And we have 2 additional bosses here, and luckily, with the fireball, it'll hit them all at once. And then I gotta try and get Elemental Overload up on my fireball. That'll really send it to another level with a bunch more damage. But this is what the build is, what it was like. It could do everything. It's built extremely tanky because I leveled it to 100. Just under 8,500 energy shield before the frost shield, and I've got a good block and whatnot on top of that. So now I'll go through what we've got going on here. So this really kind of generated from me finding this anomalous fireball. I double corrupted it. This one went into a Vol Fireball. Vol Fireball does nothing here. So if I were to get the charges and use the Vol Fireball, it only shoots 1 fireball because of this modifiers to number of projectiles do not apply to Fireball. So even though Vol Fireball says fires 32 projectiles in a spiral, it'll only fire 1. So here I have a Burning Damage, Cruelty, Swift Affliction, Ignite Prolift, and Unbound Ailments in my gem links. If I had a level 4 in Power, I think it might have edged out Cruelty. I don't think the level 3 in Power was quite enough here. But you could also have things like a Double Corrupted Chest to give extra levels to AoE gems, projectile gems. I do not have +1 on my shield for fire gems. I do have +1 all skill gems on the amulet, and I do have +1 all fire spell skill gems on the wand. So that gets me to a level 22 fireball, which if you've really stacked any damage into a spell build before, level 22 is not very high in the grand scheme of things. So there is definitely more that can be done with this damage-wise. If I had more of these anomalous fireballs to corrupt and get myself a level 21, I actually corrupted 5 of them, and none of them went to level 21. So other gems here, I have Flame Dash linked with Arcane Surge and Steel Skin. So my Flame Dash and running around and proccing my Steel Skin, those will both proc the Arcane Surge. That will give me some more cast speed. With the fireball, I have Clarity at level 1, a Divergent Malevolence, which is giving a little bit of increased damage with ailments, so a little bit extra from Ignite. I got a Tempest Shield, and I have a Discipline. I have Frost Shield linked to increased area of effect, so I can make this bubble bigger. What Frost Shield does is it degens a little bit of my energy shield when I first put it down, you can see here. But then A portion of damage dealt to me from enemies outside the area is taken from the Frost Shield's life up here before me, and a lesser percent if the enemy's inside of the Frost Shield. So a really big defensive thing, and getting the increased area of effect on it gives you a lot of room to maneuver around in it and extra survivability there. Also have an anomalous Infernal Cry. This gives increased Warcry speed. I wasn't able to get anywhere on the tree to spec into Warcry speed, so that just helps get the Warcry off faster. I'm running a pair of Syntreks here. I got a Summon Flame Golem that I don't really use, Cast on Death Portal just in case, and I have a Wave of Conviction linked with Hex Touch, faster casting, and Flame ability. So my Wave of Conviction applies fire exposure and gives flammability onto the target so the fireball can get as much damage out as possible. Something I'm missing here. Oh, here it is in the ring. I'm getting +3 levels of socketed gems for the flame wall, pushing it to level 25. So I can put the flame wall down, you launch the projectile through it, it gains a bunch of extra flat fire damage so that it can do more damage when it goes through there. So gearing wise, I had to get this Crucible tree first before I could craft a wand. So the Crucible tree is kind of baked into this. I'm losing a max Frenzy charge, getting Malevolence Aura effect, but causing it to cost more mana. I'm getting more cast speed, a little bit less global damage, so Ignites are actually doing less because of the Crucible tree as well, and a little bit of spell damage and max energy shield on that Crucible tree. Crucible tree on the shield has a little bit increased fire damage and 3% extra block chance, increased block recovery. Didn't push it anything further there. But going through the gear here, the wand, I alt spammed this until I hit +1 all fire spell skill gems, and then augment regaled into a little bit of extra flat fire dispels, then multi-modded fire dot multi and increased fire damage on a Demon's Horn, as this gives flat fire damage to spells and attacks now. Now, since this is a CI build, everything is kind of juiced to as much energy shield as possible. My helmet has 338 energy shield. I get some fizz from hits taken as lightning damage and extra flat damage to spells here, but everything else is just as much energy shield as possible. Same with the shield. The shield has 323 energy shield, and I crafted a percentage of my fire damage as extra chaos on here. This is also where my aspect of the spider is on my gear. The chest also has a ton of energy shield on it, 631 energy shield there. While unique enemies in your presence, you get extra energy shield, and I'm gaining a frenzy charge every 13 seconds. I have a max of 2 frenzy charges, so it was just a nice little bit of extra damage. Syntrek here is a very high energy shield pair of boots that you can get really easily, and it's like still, like, I'm not seeing a lot of resistances on all this gear, so that's where the belt comes in. Has a strength roll on here that I think I needed, as well as much energy shield as I could get on it with some resistances. The gloves, 159 energy shield, fire dot multi, damage per 100 intelligence. Big resist rolls there with as much energy shield as I could get. Ring here with energy shield, some resistances. The other ring has fire damage. The +3 socketed gems on the unset ring was fantastic. And then -7 to total mana cost of skills. If I spam the fireball, I just degen like mana too quickly. So I needed to lower the cost of the skills a little bit. And then Amulet has +1 all skill gems. Has a lot of intelligence on it, which is a big boost. Energy shield, and then more energy shield there as well. My jewel here has flat fire dispels. Flat fire dispels while holding a shield. Damage penetrates elemental resistance if you haven't killed recently, just to further push the damage as far as I could there. Flasks, since I'm CI, I don't have any life pool. I didn't need a life flask, so I do have a mana flask that I can use to shore up that mana regen when I need it and remove corrupting blood. A jade flask for extra evasion rating in case I do get hit, a chance for me to not get hit. A quartz flask so I can move through enemies, spell damage, leeches energy shield. A Rumi's concoction to help shore up the block. Just sitting here, I have 31 attack block, 65 spell block with the Rumi's up 4369. Looks a little nicer there. And then the Quicksilver Flask is also giving me extra increased cast speed, because I didn't invest in cast speed anywhere else. but I wanted to be able to throw these fireballs everywhere. Moving on to the Ascendancy. Mastermind of Discord. Exposure you inflict applies an extra -25 to the affected resistance, and you regenerate 1% of mana per second if you've inflicted exposure recently. So that, with my Wave of Conviction, makes Wave of Conviction apply -40 to the fire resistance just from exposure before we get the flammability there. And then Heart of Destruction, gain convergence when you hit a unique enemy no more than once every 8 seconds. And then you get 60% increased area of effect while you don't have convergence, which is big, right? So every bit of increased area of effect I can get doubles. So that 60% area of effect is big when you factor in the 100% more area effect from the Crucible tree. And then if you hit a unique enemy, you lose that 60% area of effect, but you get 30% more elemental damage against a single target there. Then Shaper of Flames, your hits can always ignite. So I didn't have to spec into chance to ignite, and I get 25% more damage with ignites you inflict with hits for which the highest damage type is fire. So I'm definitely doing the most damage with fire with this, as the only thing outside of the bit of extra chaos damage from the shield. So it hits always ignite, don't have to worry about that. And then there's the defensive node, Bastion of Elements, triggers level 20 Primal Aegis when allocated, and it can take elemental damage based on the number of notable passives, and I cannot take reflected elemental damage. So up here, this is my Primal Aegis. I can take another 2,250 elemental damage from this Primal Aegis before it even touches my energy shield. That's about 8,500. The passive tree here is pretty dialed in. You don't want to really stack spell damage here. So you would think, okay, fireball, spell damage, right? But I'm trying to do damage with the ignites. So if I'm increasing spell damage, that'll increase the damage, the punchiness of the fireball, but it's not going to scale the ignite damage. You want fire damage for that. So spell damage isn't good for that. So instead, I go through all this energy shield, and we stack as much energy shield as I can, going up into Arcane Focus. Faster start of ES recharge. Practical application here gives me 10 all res, 20 strength and dex, which I absolutely need. Being a witch up in the top of the tree, strength and dex is really valuable. Chance to ignore stuns while casting. And then we'll go to the right first. Pushing up here, get Essence Surge with one of the 4 energy shield masteries. This one has 100% increased energy shield from equipped helmet. Helmet has 338 energy shield, so that's a lot of extra energy shield here. And this is giving me faster start of energy shield recharge, faster ES recharge rate. Fire nodes here, ignites you inflict deal damage faster, which helps speed things up. And then burning enemies you kill have a 3% chance to explode, dealing 1/10 of their maximum life as fire damage. That is probably the most useless node on this passive tree, if I'm being honest. Pushing out to the right, 30 strength, because I wound up needing that. Like, I'm capped on how much I can level my Infernal Cry because of I'm limited by strength there. But push it down here. Snowforged, enemies ignited by you have -5 to elemental resistances. We get extra fire damage there. And then exposure you inflict applies at least -18 to the affected resistance. It's one of the last notes I put in. Given this Wave of Conviction, it says it applies -15 to elemental resistance. I think that goes to 18, but I'm also not sure on that, given that Mastermind at Discord applies an extra -25, so that might be a wasted node as well. So you could take a defensive node here, reduce effective exposure on you, or something. But anyways, push down towards Growth and Decay, taking the damage over time multiplier and damage over time multiplier if you've killed recently. Life and energy shield here with extra strength. Regenerate 2% of energy shield per second. That's pretty huge. And then we push towards Chaos Inoculation. Maximum life becomes 1 and we're immune to chaos damage. So really doubling down on all the energy shield investments. Some mana reservation efficiency to get these auras in, and increased damage for each of your aura or herald skills affecting you. I have, I guess, 3 that fit in that. I don't think Tempest Shield counts. Maybe Aspect of the Spider counts as an aura. I don't know, but I have 5 reservation things. But even if it's only 3, this is a 25% increased damage. It's a generic damage, so it should also scale with the ignites there. The other side, pushed up here for Mystic Bulwark, extra spell block, mana regeneration, and mana reservation. You have to have a mana mastery now to get the 12% mana reservation efficiency, so I pushed a Mystic Bulwark for that. It was along the way, and we pushed up through the Jewel Socket. I have fire damage, fire dot multi here, and faster start of energy shield recharge. And we go across the top here to get the fire nodes, breath of flames, fire dot multi, fire damage. Here, the left side's all increased fire damage. There's a little bit of fire pin there, but my hits aren't what's dealing the damage. It's the ignites. I did get more mana here. This also comes with some intelligence. Intelligence scales energy shield really nicely. So I could have also gotten that mastery here, or I could take a 10% reduced cost of skills to help shore that up with all the cast speed I have. Maybe it's something better than this elemental mastery. Once you get to level 100, you really nitpick every little thing to find every bit of this. But moving on towards Unnatural Calm, this is giving me +1 to maximum lightning resistance, a lot of energy shield recharge rate, more energy shield, and another mastery. So my stun threshold is based off of 60% of my energy shield instead of my life. So now I'm not getting stunned, way less when I get hit. And here I'm grabbing Arcane Guarding. This is spell block while holding a shield, but also we're getting increased energy shield from equipped shield from the top small nodes here. And there's also more energy shield from equipped shield on Arcane Guarding. The shield has 323 energy shields, so this is a lot of extra energy shield from that. And then 1% chance to block attack damage per 5 chance to block on equipped shield. I currently have 26 here, so that's only an extra 5 attack block, but for 1 point is better attack block than I could get anywhere else. Moving down here, I have more strength with might. I have insightfulness. This is mana and more energy shield, getting me my 4th mastery. Light radius is based on energy shield instead of life, and I get increased light radius. Without this, the light radius goes to like nothing and you can't see in darker maps at all. We push up here, grab Elemental Overload. So if I do a critical strike, I gain 40% more elemental damage for the next 8 seconds. That's a lot of extra damage if it goes off, but my crit chance on my fireball appears to be 7.74%. So it's not often that I get that up, but when it does get up, it's really nice. And then Acrimony is dot multi on here, and then increased effective cruelty. Cruelty gives you a buff which gives up to 40% more damage over time, and so increasing the effect of cruelty helps get to that 40% easier. Pushing down towards Safeguard, get more block, some LU resistances here while holding the shield. Get the spell block up and some fire damage, area of effect, and explosive impact. Going along the top side, grab Zealot's Oath, so any life regeneration I manage to get is converted to energy shield regen instead. Some more fire dot multi here, some fire res, fire exposure you inflict applies an extra -5, which is nice. Grab Sovereignty for more aura, mana reservation efficiency there, which I had to do that because my malevolence is just costing more reservation, and I really squeaked in the aspect of the spider. An aspect of the spider causes enemies to be hindered nearby and causes a stacking debuff to cause them to take increased damage, so that scales the fire damage there. And then lastly, push down to Faith and Steel. This is 8 all res, more energy shield, and then 10% of physical damage from hits taken as chaos damage, but I'm immune to chaos damage, so this is 10% less physical damage taken just by getting this mastery while CI. And then I'm grabbing this life regeneration from Surge of Vigor so that nearby enemies have reduced life regeneration rate. So enemies that have lots of regen, it really hinders your ability to deal damage with damage over time. So getting this really helps, and then that pairs with the Zealot's Oath for the life regen. And that pretty much covers the build. Let's see, Pantheon, I stacked Soul of the Bride King, and I'm using Soul of Aberranth. So with an energy shield build, ignites on you are going to degen your energy shield, and you cannot restart your energy shield recharge while you're ignited and taking that damage. So this gives less duration of ignites, unaffected by burning ground, and you get extra movement speed on burning ground. So I'm not going to be running around in a map that's slowly degenning me, preventing me from regenerating energy shield. So Aberrath is a really solid take here. So originally I had this Carcass Jack in here that like that definitely juices up the area of effect quite a bit. I would just slap all these things in. I'll do one more map with the Carcass Jack on so we can look at the extra area of effect going on here. It really, like, look how much energy shield I lost by putting on the Carcass Jack. Like, it's a pretty big difference defensively. So the Carcass Jack's fun. They're easy to corrupt and get +2 duration AoE gems and whatnot to like really scale up Fireball. And with a Carcass Jack and this anomalous Fireball, you get an Ashes of the Stars to boost the quality of the anomalous Fireball. You might be able to make something like this work without the Crucible tree for the Fireball AoE, but I don't see this build really being like replicable in any good fashion without it. I was also using these boots here, ignites, deal damage faster, chance to avoid being frozen stuff before I switched into the like full CI. I'm gonna level to 100 bit with this. So like there were a few options that I had. I never went into cluster jewels. There might be more min-maxing that could be done there. Throw in a courtyard map here that has Drox in it. So there's gonna be lots of extra monsters. Fizz Reflect, crit. So I could get myself killed here because I put on the Carcass Jack, but we'll throw this in here. We'll have extra monsters from Eater of Worlds and Warlord, and it should be pretty juicy. Courtyard's fairly open as well, so we should see lots of good Ignite prolifs going on. Oh, and porcupines. Lovely. But yeah, I was a little bit sad that I couldn't get the damage quite pushed to where I wanted to see it, but I had to make a sacrifice with the energy shield at some point, so did what I had to do, and I built it to a point that it would level to 100 nicely, smoothly, no issues. I got this extra bubble in case things get really crazy. Yeah, I'm getting the extra area effect now from the Carcass Jack on the bubble, so it's almost the size of my screen. But yeah, look how much bigger just that the Carcass Jack area of effect can make this. Like, it's such a, like, almost top to the bottom of my screen. Oh, and we've got some Betrayal Syndicate. Try and stay in my bubble. Use this. Just hopefully get up the Elemental Overload if I can. But like the damage is okay. It's not super bad or anything. There just is a little bit more to be desired. And I'm also only in a 5 link at the moment. It doesn't really change too much, honestly. But the Ignite prolifs, it's super, super fantastic. Try to launch one off screen. Oh, it hit. Look at it. The whole screen just went up in flames. It's so good. I love that. Like, you can't do that like any other way. Like, it's just not happening. So yeah, I was still kind of sad that the Crucible tree didn't find its way into the 3.22 Trial of the Ancestors patch, but I do have hope that this build will come back to us and we'll get to do these big Fireball AoE explosions at some time in the future because I loved this build. And once you have enough area of effect on this, like, it's so crazy. Like, the Ignite prolifs took out the Strongmots. I didn't have to even launch another one. So good. Another Betrayal. You gotta kind of like try and spam it sometimes to get the Elemental Overload, but 7% crits, not really ideal for that. There's ways to work that in as well. Onto the bosses here. We know they're over there, so I'm gonna launch the fireballs and pop in. Boom. And then we'll get them cursed with the flammability. Throw in the bubble just to be super safe. There we go. Now I've got a Drox to deal with. Now I thought Drox was really fun with this because all of the banners that gets thrown down here, not going to even matter. Not even going to have to think about these banners because I have so much AoE on my Fireball nuke that I'm just going to keep attacking Drox. And look, all of them are burning because the Fireball AoE is so big and it's fantastic. So that's really cool. And we'll throw on the bubble, get the Infernal Cry off, so he's taking some extra damage. Oh, finally, like, draining. Oh, I got the arcade, or the elemental overload up. We'll hit the war cry. There go the banners. They both go down at the exact same time. Just the big fireball AOE ignites. So good. I want this build back in a future league. However, it manages its way in. I really thought this mod would replace the increased area effect, reduced projectile speed, alt quality fireball. That's what I thought we'd get. I thought they would have left this the same, but taken away the big area effect you could get from this alt quality gem. So you have to get that area effect elsewhere, but you could still build around this. Fingers crossed that we'll get it. But that's going to do it for this one. I'd like to thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this video, definitely hit the like button, as it really helps the channel out a lot. Subscribe to make sure you don't miss more videos from me. If you'd like to support my channel, please consider using the super thanks, the heart icon just below the video, or by joining to become a member. And I'll see you on the next one. Cheers.